American politics are badly broken, but there is a solution to the hyper-partisanship that's pulling our country apart. As a result of our own rapid development, American culture has become stretched out to the point where it no longer coheres as a governable entity. Political centrism, however, is not a viable solution because hyperpolarization is more of a cultural problem than a political one. To repair our broken politics, we need to increase our collective cultural intelligence. Cultural intelligence sees through to the bedrock values where our current conflicts lie. And once we see America's conflicting bedrock values more clearly, we can begin to recognize how these seemingly incompatible values can actually work together. To see American culture accurately, we have to recognize the basic units of culture, which are worldviews. Worldviews are coherent sets of values that persist across multiple generations. These large-scale value systems frame reality and provide identity. When we look beyond the binary politics of left and right, we can see how American culture is, in fact, divided into three major worldviews: the mainstream worldview of modernity, the socially conservative traditional worldview, and the progressive postmodern worldview, which has emerged over the last 50 years. Each of these major worldviews includes positive values that our society needs, as well as negative pathologies we must overcome. From within the perspective of each of these worldviews, the others appear wrong-headed. Each worldview sees the other worldview's negatives, but they don't see the intrinsic good that the other worldviews are trying to achieve. Yet when we use cultural intelligence to view all three worldviews from outside and above, we can begin to recognize their mutual interdependence. Cultural intelligence starts by distinguishing each worldview's upsides from its downsides. To see how this works, let's start with a worldview of modernity. Modernist values include individual liberty, human rights, rule of law, economic and scientific progress, and personal achievement and prosperity. These liberal values are the backbone of our society. But besides these positive values, modernity has also brought negatives, such as environmental degradation, economic inequality, and nuclear weapons. Modernity's negatives cause some to reject it, but this important worldview can be built on and improved. The traditional worldview also has positives and negatives. Traditional values include loyalty to family and country, duty and honor, and the sacrifice of self-interest for the greater good. Traditional values like these represent our cultural heritage. But traditionalism's negatives include racism, sexism, and homophobia. Traditionalists also have authoritarian tendencies. Yet like modernity, traditional culture needn't be eliminated. We can carry forward the best while pruning away with the worst. As with modernism and traditionalism, the progressive worldview also has positives and negatives. Progressive values include environmentalism, diversity and inclusion, and social justice for every level of society. Progressive values provide a new level of care that can help us become a more moral society. Progressive negatives, however, include anti-modernism, reverse patriotism, divisive identity politics, self-righteous scolding, and tyrannical demands for immediate reform. The newly emerging perspective of cultural intelligence is post-progressive, because while it affirms progressive values, it also recognizes the legitimacy and ongoing necessity of modernist values and traditional values as well. Cultural intelligence can see how each worldview's values are an integral part of America's overall cultural ecosystem. And like a biological ecosystem, these different parts of our cultural ecosystem are interdependent. The aha moment of cultural intelligence comes when we see how all these values are needed not only by our larger society, but by each of us personally. And as we come to appreciate and affirm the entire spectrum of positive values, We literally raise our own consciousness. Using cultural intelligence does not change the values we hold dear. It strengthens our values and increases our ability to be energized by the motivating power of a wider range of positive values. The only way to overcome hyperpolarization is to grow out of it by becoming a more mature society, which means we need to improve American culture across the board by strengthening each worldview's values while at the same time constraining each worldview's negatives. And cultural intelligence gives us the power to do just that. As described in my new book, Developmental Politics, America can grow into a better version of itself by becoming more culturally intelligent.